Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 305. Without any delay, start explanation. He was so conceited that he would never resort to whispering in her ears to express his affection for her even when they were head over heels in love. She simply could not believe her ears. How could Chen Xinjie possibly declare his feelings for her with his kind of temperament? Was it truly him? Was he this person facing her? Chen Xinjie watched her in a daze. He could not refrain himself from taking 2 steps in a rush to get closer to her. Don't you believe me? I'm sincere. My first thought when I found out that Shrek Academy was destroyed was to drop everything that I was doing. I vow to love you wholeheartedly if ever I'm given the opportunity for a new lease of life. Yet, it's not possible to be given a new life and get the chance to do things again. Just when I've given up all hope, heaven sent you my way. I've been given such a golden opportunity. I've already missed out a century, so I won't miss it anymore regardless. Even if you've stopped loving me, I'll still be by your side like a stick jaw. Hang on a moment. I'll head back to the command post to hand over my tasks right now and resign from my position. Then, I'll follow you wherever you go. Anything you wish to do, anywhere you wish to go, I'll be at your side. Chen Xinjie turned around and left upon saying that. Long Yeyue could not refrain herself at last. She called out subconsciously, "You! Stand there." Chen Xinjie immediately stopped walking. He turned around to look at her and suddenly realized. That's right. I can't leave alone. He returned to Long Yeyue's side quickly and grabbed her hand. Follow me. That way, I'll never part with you anymore. I'll stay with you no matter where we go. Let go of me. Long Yeyue flung Chen Xinjie's hand away, slightly embarrassed. How old are you now? When will you learn to write the word shame? Chen Xinjie laughed. Now that you mentioned we're old, what else is there to be ashamed of? I've wasted 100 years. From the moment I got this figured, everything else didn't matter. Do you still think that worldly affairs are capable of restricting us? I'm the boundless sea Doluo and you're the light dark Doluo. Anyway, you can't possibly ignore me. It's beyond all doubt. Long Yeyue was at a loss for words. She suddenly felt all the anger she had for Zongxin completely disappear. There was even some gratitude. If she had not come today, how could she ever meet Chen Xinjie, who was now a completely different person? However, she just discovered she could not mention her objective now that she has heard his confession. She was unwilling to use this man who appeared rather sincere. She could not make use of him knowing his feelings. She would rather he remained headstrong as before. Heck, she would even fight him if need be. Yet, Chen Xinjie's current state of mind made her feel at a loss. She did not know how to handle this man. I'm leaving. Long Yeyue swayed her body once and her silhouette was already on a spot 1,000 meters away. Where are you going? Chen Xinjie was immediately anxious. In a flash, he hastily chased after her. They were both powerhouses of the same rank. Long Yeyue was albeit a tad faster than him, but there was not much difference between them. Yeyue, could it be that it's still not enough? Please tell me. What should I do? Chen Xinjie gestured in the air with his right hand and turned the entire sky blue. A massive gush of suction force filled the entire space and pulled at Long Yeyue's silhouette. Leave. I don't want to see you anymore. Long Yeyue turned around and slapped the air with her right hand. At once, a deep dragon's roar was heard. It was as if thousands of giant dragons emerged in the air and tore apart the suction force. She was about to flee into space. A gigantic vortex appeared silently. The surging suction force warped those giant dragons. Chen Xinjie used his body to block Long Yeyue's path in a flash. Yeyue, how can I prove my love to you then? It's too late. It's too late, roared Long Yeyue at him in a rage all of a sudden. It's been 100 years. I've waited for 100 years. What were you doing for the past 100 years? It's already been 100 years. I'm already 100 years old, and I'm about to reach the end of my life. For 100 years, I've been broken-hearted. Why do you choose to tell me this now? I don't wish to waste my remaining life because of you. I hate you, Chen Xinjie. I regret knowing you truly. I'd not have suffered in sorrow for 100 years if not for you. I would have found my happiness if not for you. Do you really think that the hatred of 100 years can be soothed by your few loving words? I can tell you that I'll never forgive you till eternity. Go back and become your war god Hall's Hall master. Long Yeyue's eyes were brimming with tears. Her right hand was balled into a fist before she swung her fist abruptly. Two golden giant dragons together with a black giant dragon emerged behind her simultaneously. The gigantic dragons' heads filled the air with booming roars. A tiny vortex condensed in front of the spot where Long Yeyue swung her fist. It was even more terrifying than a rank 9 fixed soul ammunition. Chen Xinjie was stunned upon listening to her words. Yes. It had been 100 years. 100 years had passed and they had lost too many. There were many things that they could never regain in the passing of 100 years. A wisp of a bitter smile emerged on his face soon after. The gigantic vortex underneath his body vanished, leaving only the sound of countless dragon roars lingering in his ears. He did not make a move to resist Long Yeyue's fist. On the contrary, he closed his eyes. She refused to forgive him in the end, and he did not know what else he could do to atone for his mistake. Even now, he was as impulsive as a young man. Since she refused to forgive him, he will use his life to show his sincerity. In any case, he had lost the will to live without her forgiveness. Long Yeyue did not expect Chen Xinjie to brave her attack. Her bipolar explosion technique with the terrifying power of the light-dark holy dragons had already reached his chest. At this very moment, she saw a faint smile on his relaxed face. He was in a calm and composed state as he stood at the mercy of her thumping against his chest. Long Yeyue was shocked. All her grievances turned into remorse. She suddenly gave out a muffled humph as she slapped her left hand against her right fist to nudge away the bipolar explosion's attack. The violent explosion of light-dark power dimmed even the sun in the sky. Chen Xinjie, who had completely given up on defending himself, was immediately blasted away by the remnant tremor. "You be **starred. Long Yeyue called out aloud. She swayed her body once before she fused into the void and vanished without a trace. Tang Wulin sat on the rooftop of the hotel as he gazed into the distance. Tang Wulin showed concern in his eyes as he watched the light changes in the sky. "Your Excellency, do you think that Elder Long and His Excellency, the boundless Sea Doluo, are fighting each other?" The amorous Doluo chuckled. "Of course not. If they are truly fighting, then it won't just be this little amount of force we're seeing now. That's nothing but the love between two limit Doluos. You better get used to it. However, I'm prepared to go into hiding for a while. I'm almost done with the Darkness Phoenix. It shouldn't be much of a problem even if Elder Long didn't succeed." Tang Wulin looked toward him in puzzlement. The amorous Doluo shrugged. "We can only do an exchange. The Holy Spirit cult will be assuming its responsibility for the previous attack while agreeing to a few of our terms and conditions. We'll then release the Darkness Phoenix." "Release her? Your Excellency, what sort of terms are we imposing for a Hyper Doluo? It's not easy for us to. How about the Atlas Doluo's soul? Moreover, it's more than just that," said Zongshin softly. Tang Wulin was shocked. He could not help asking, "What are you saying?" The amorous Doluo cracked into a smile. "Do you think that I'll let out the light-dark Doluo's secret so easily if I'm not confident about this?" Tang Wulin stared at him in bewilderment. He never thought that Zongshin would come up with such tricks. The older generation of powerhouses was extraordinary and impressive indeed, just as expected. The amorous Doluo spoke. "I noticed that the Darkness Phoenix's emotion was rather peculiar when we were fighting. She had completely changed compared to the person we knew back in those days. She was eccentric, so I figured that her character was a little twisted because she mentioned that she loved Yun Ming during the conversation. I can confirm that she took part in the battle that destroyed Shrek Academy. She revealed that she had captured Yun Ming's soul. It was truly a demented idea. Tang Wulin spoke, "Your Excellency, can a person's soul still exist when the person has lost his body?" Zongxin answered, "Not for an ordinary person, but it's not impossible for a limit dolor who has already achieved demigod rank. Perhaps you're not aware of how powerful Yun Ming is. It's because you weren't born in the same generation like us. Speaking of which, you're quite similar to Yun Ming when he was younger. At the time, he was unparalleled among his peers. In addition to his background from Shrek Academy, he was the dream lover of almost all the outstanding female soul masters. He was also a romantic youth, so he flirted with many female soul masters, which resulted in the never-ending love trysts later on. The sisters, the Dark Phoenix Dolor and Yulai and the Heavenly Phoenix Dolor and Yaozhu both loved him once. You should have met the Heavenly Phoenix Dolor before. She's the Deputy Pagoda Master of the Spirit Pagoda." Huh? Tang Wulin was greatly astonished. When he met the Dark Phoenix Dolor, she had already transformed into her martial soul avatar the Darkness Phoenix, but he had not seen her true appearance. He never expected this person to be Leng Yaozhu's sister. Both of them fell in love with Yun Ming back in the beginning. I think Yun Ming made a favorable impression on them too. In any case, they were siblings. It was precisely because of Yun Ming that the sisters had a fallout in their relationship. Who would have known that Yun Ming didn't choose either of them but ended up together with the Holy Spirit Dolor? The Heavenly Phoenix Dolor gloomily left while the Dark Phoenix Dolor stirred up trouble. Anyway, I don't know much about what happened afterward. Judging from the current situation, I think that the Dark Phoenix Dolor was badly hurt then. Yun Ming was genuinely a female magnet at the time. He became the Sea God's Pavilion Master by completely relying on his ability. He became a title Dolor when he was 23 years old, Hyper Dolor at 26, then a Limit Dolor at 31. He created miracles and was being compared to both His Excellency, the Tang sect's earliest ancestor, the Thousand Hands Dolor Tang San, and the Spirit Pagoda's founder who is also the Tang sect's ancestor, the Holy Ice Dolor Hui Hao. It was thought that he could rely on his cultivation base to enter the Divine Realm at the time had the Divine Realm not vanished. Yun Ming thought so too. You'll notice this if you pay close attention. Yun Ming was always youthful. There were not many people from the same generation of Limit Duluos who were comparable to him. Cao Deji and I consumed some heaven and earth treasures from the ice-fire polarized eyes in order to retain our youthful looks. On the other hand, he only relied on his cultivation base. We're all Limit Duluos and forward battle armor masters. Cao Deji and I together can barely suppress him even with our greatest efforts. For sure, we can't defeat him. The power of a godkiller rank fixed soul ammunition is more terrifying than you can imagine. If not for Yun Ming's solo effort in fending off the majority of the attack force, your classmates couldn't possibly flee underground. Even the underground would have been destroyed by the explosion. He was the main reason for your survival. If not for protecting all of you, a godkiller rank fixed soul ammunition may not necessarily have killed Yun Ming. Furthermore, what I gathered from the Dark Phoenix Dolor was that the two emperors from the Holy Spirit cult were present on the day of the attack. Yun Ming was fighting against them when he had to ward off the power of the explosion. Otherwise, there would have been more survivors from Shrek. It was Tang Wulin's first time listening to someone recounting the Atlas Dolor Yun Ming's abilities. He was capable of rivaling the Amorous Dolor and Heartless Dolor with his solo effort. One could only imagine how formidable the Atlas Dolor was. He was the universally acknowledged #1 man regardless of his abilities. It's quite normal for his soul to remain due to his spiritual cultivation base. Moreover, I believe he has a way that will stop the Holy Spirit cult from using his soul. If we can exchange for his soul, although he can't possibly be the Atlas Dolor anymore, it will still be meaningful for Shrek Academy. At least, the Holy Spirit Dolor will be in a much better mood. Tang Wulin took a deep breath. So, the Holy Spirit cult has agreed to this. The Amorous Dolor nodded. They have no choice but to consent. The Darkness Phoenix is one of the 4 great heavenly kings, so she is very important to the Holy Spirit cult. She stands a chance to become a Limit Dolor with her natural endowment. As compared to the other souls, it's apparently more important to the Dark Phoenix Doluo Ling Yulai. Moreover, there's a divine weapon on Ling Yulai's body that the Holy Spirit cult can't bear to part. Thus, they propose for us to return both the person and the item. Are you talking about the spatial type divine weapon? Tang Wulin had sensed the power of the almighty spacetime shuttle at the time. It was a powerful spatial type divine weapon that could engulf a large delivery truck directly. Zongxin smiled and nodded. Precisely. However, we won't return it to them so easily. We've already reached an agreement with them, that is to return the Dark Phoenix Doluo first while they acknowledge their responsibility for the attacks. At the same time, they must pledge not to start a war within a year. It's only when there's no war for a whole year that we'll return them the spatial type divine weapon. They'll also have to return Yun Ming's soul to us simultaneously. Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment. Your Excellency, the Atlas Doluo's soul is very important. Although it was only a soul and no longer a limit Doluo rank powerhouse, the Atlas Doluo served as a very important spiritual symbol of Shrek Academy. No other item could measure up to that, not even a divine weapon. Zongxin spoke with all apparent seriousness. I've considered this matter closely and discussed it with the Holy Spirit Doluo. It's the most proper approach for this matter. Despite the fact that Yun Ming's soul will only be returned later, the spatial type divine weapon is equally important for your trip to the two great empires. With it, you'll be able to use it to enhance both your offense and defense. Yun Ming's soul? What's going on? Meanwhile, a peculiar voice was heard. A radiance flashed once and the light dark Doluo Long Yue appeared at their side. She had regained her senile appearance. On the surface, she did not appear to have any emotional changes. Zongxin's expression was frozen for a moment as he coughed once upon seeing her sudden arrival. Elder Long. Humph. Long Yue struck the dragon-headed cane in her hand against the ground once as she looked at Zongxin with a burning gaze. Zongxin spoke helplessly. I had no choice but to carry out a few tasks at the same time. Moreover, it's about time to let Chen Xinjie know that you're still alive. Otherwise, his presence will pose a big problem for us to evade the war. Long Yue did not speak, but she looked at him coldly. Zongxin's expression appeared slightly stiff. Elder Long. I still have many tasks to handle regarding the exchange with the Holy Spirit cult. Let's discuss this later. His body swayed once and transformed into a stream of radiance before vanishing completely. Long Yue did not bother to chase after Zongxin. The raging aura from her body dissipated soon after Zongxin left. Her gaze landed upon Tang Wulin, who appeared a little anxious by her side. Elder Long. Tang Wulin dared not ask. Judging by Long Yue's expression, he had a hard time figuring out the outcome of her discussion with the boundless Sea Doluo. Long Yue spoke indifferently, I'm going back to the Tang sect. If you need to seek Chen Xinjie's help in the future, tell him that you're my disciple. Tell him what you wish to divulge. If he asks about my location, then please tell him that I'll not see him until Shrek is rebuilt. Her body swayed once before she, too, vanished without a trace. Tang Wulin did not manage to reply in time. He had learned about the Atlas Doluo's personal entanglements today. So, he felt that the older generation had their issues too. Ji Yuan's charming silhouette emerged in his mind once again. He grabbed the pendant hanging around his neck subconsciously. Ji, we won't be like our seniors loving each other, yet can't be together, right? Is the Spirit Pagoda making things difficult for you? Perhaps I'm not powerful enough in the final analysis. I'll work hard and put in extra effort to become a title Doluo as soon as possible. Then I'll look for you. Meanwhile, the surrounding air suddenly tightened. A light shadow flashed once. The boundless Sea Doluo Chen Xinjie appeared out of thin air, obviously in an emotionally charged state. He could not help being stunned upon seeing Tang Wulin. He grabbed Tang Wulin's arm at once. Have you seen her? He could sense Long Yue's aura. He had come looking for her at his swiftest. How could he remain calm when he still could not see her? Tang Wulin nodded. Where's she? Asked Chen Xinjie in exasperation. Long Yeyue had used an unknown method such that he could not sense her presence anymore. Tang Wulin spoke, "I'm Elder Long's disciple. The grand old woman tells me that I can request anything from you." Then, Tang Wulin paused for a moment at this juncture because he felt unsure about the boundless Si Doluo's emotional stability. He was wondering if he should tell Chen Xinjie about Elder Long's latter utterance. What else did she say? Tell me quickly. The boundless Si Doluo shook Tang Wulin's shoulders forcefully. Tang Wulin spoke, "Elder Long said that she would never see you again unless Shrek is rebuilt." Shrek is rebuilt? The violent rage Tang Wulin had predicted did not appear. On the contrary, it seemed like the boundless Si Doluo was a little confused. Chen Xinjie loosened his grip on Tang Wulin and the expression on his face was filled with bitterness. Rebuild Shrek? Easier said than done. I'm willing to help you, but why can't we be together? Why can't we work hand in hand to accomplish that? Our lives are already growing shorter and shorter. Why aren't you willing to let me spend a little time with you? At this very moment, Tang Wulin could clearly sense dreariness from this man's body. Tang Wulin dared not speak as he listened to Chen Xinjie's heartfelt thoughts. He felt as his heart was filled with a strange sensation. Chen Xinjie was incomparably hard-headed and indomitable when he was facing Tang Wulin. Yet, he still remained uncertain in the face of love which was no different from Tang Wulin. Are you from Shrek Academy as well? Chen Xinjie calmed his emotions. After all, he would only allow himself to forget who he was when before Long Yeyue. Tang Wulin nodded. Since Elder Long had already allowed Tang Wulin to seek Chen Xinjie's help by himself, it seemed like the boundless Si Doluo would be acting quite differently now. Chen Xinjie squinted his eyes and glanced up and down at Tang Wulin a few times, sizing him up. Your aim is to prevent war from happening, right? Tang Wulin nodded once again. Chen Xinjie raised his head and looked up to the sky before heaving a sigh. Understood. Perhaps only by taking real action will you forgive me in time. Please tell her on my behalf that I can only live for another 10 years at most. I'll spend every day of whatever time I have left helping to fulfill her wish. You have my communicator number, so do keep in touch. I can only hope that she can give me just one day when I'm about to reach the end of my life and then I'll be content. I don't know if Shrek Academy can be successfully rebuilt by then, but I pray that she will allow me to love her wholeheartedly even just for one day. Upon saying that, Chen Xinjie's body suddenly turned into brilliant, glowing water-like ripples and vanished without a trace into thin air. Even just for a day? Tang Wulin was shocked by his words. What sort of love was that? Love that remained as good as new despite the passing of time. He suddenly felt that Elder Long was a little cruel for doing this, but he quickly pushed that thought away. After all, he did not understand what actually happened between these two limit Duluos. The effect seems to be rather impressive, huh? Zongxin appeared unnoticed behind Tang Wulin. Feeling slightly helpless, Tang Wulin turned around and looked at him. He genuinely did not feel that good getting caught between three limit Duluos. Your Excellency, it seems like there's no need for us to do anything much after this, right? Said Tang Wulin. You can prepare to embark on your voyage with your companions. There's no need to worry about the rest anymore. One day later, the Holy Spirit cult suddenly seized control of a federal Seoul television station and claimed responsibility for the attack on the East Sea Fleet. A great dispute broke out in the media. The Dove faction seized the opportunity to whip up the public opinion as to how to repel foreign invasion without proper internal security. The massive threat of the Holy Spirit cult was already a pressing issue. They called for the Federation to prescribe a decree to suppress the Holy Spirit cult as soon as possible. In reality, the Holy Spirit cult's secrecy made suppressing them easier said than done, but at least the public's attention was distracted to a certain degree. Their concerns shifted from supporting war to the Holy Spirit cult. The change in the direction of public opinion had some impact on the military. The Dove faction launched a series of attacks on the Hawk faction, such as mocking their inability to fight against the Holy Spirit cult. How could the military carry out expeditions when the Holy Spirit cult was seizing the opportunity to destroy the Federation from the inside? The Dove faction's view could be described as saving the nation by a template. They did not oppose war anymore, but they were telling common people how Holy Spirit cult hidden within the Federation was terrifying. The people were whipped up into a frenzy immediately. The Dove faction finally managed to gain the upper hand this time. The Federal General, the Sea God Army's regimental commander, the War God Hall's Hall Master, the boundless Sea Dolor Chen Xinjie officially declared war on the Holy Spirit cult. Moreover, they began sweeping Holy Spirit cult on a large scale with Sky Sea City as the starting point. It was apparent that war could not possibly happen within a short period of time under such circumstances. On the other hand, an enormous-sized submarine as large as an enlarged whale cruised toward the distance soundlessly under the surface of East Sea. Tang Wulin sat cross-legged in his cabin as he meditated. When he first saw this submarine that was docked in a secret port, his entire person was stunned from astonishment. Even though he had already learned of Tang Sect's potential abilities, yet he had never expected that Tang Sect would own such a war-rank terrifying submarine as powerful as this extent. The federal government was just on the starting point in the research of submarine right now. The submarine formation did not exist in the federal fleet truly, but there were only some experimental submarines enlisted in the service. On the other hand, Tang Sect owned such an enormous submarine. The submarine was 360 meters in length with its shape akin to a whale. Its thickest part was a full 78 meters while its highest point was 62 meters. It was sufficient to carry 5,000 people in combat. There were specialized mecha cabin, Sol cannon warehouse with obvious distribution of divisions. According to Amaris Dolor, the 1,000 Hola-class submarine named with 1,000 Hands Dolor and Holy Ice Dolor's names possessed the newest technology that the Federation had yet to possess. Its traveling speed was 1/3 faster than the Federation submarine, while it was also much larger as compared to the Federation submarine simultaneously. It was driven with the most advanced Sol circuit, so it was capable of relying on absorption of water element before converting it into adequate propelling force. A 5-ringed and above Sol master would need to urge the Sol circuit after every certain period of time and cleanse the impurities before it could continue its voyage theoretically. It was equipped with 36 missile launchers, and it was capable of launching fixed Sol ammunitions below rank 6. Moreover, it was also equipped with specialized Sol cannons targeted at underwater battle. According to the Federal military's anti-submarine ability, there was nothing the Federation could do about this. It was capable of navigating long distance 3,000 meters below sea level. Tang Wulin had only truly understood the extent of Tang Sect's technology standards after seeing the submarine. The ownership of such a submarine was Tang Sect's true performance. It allowed them to have the ability to head to Do Spirit and Star Luo empires without fear of being discovered. Tang Wulin and his team entered the submarine through a secret tunnel underground. The submarine itself was docked in the deep sea, and it was linked to the underground level of ground through a special passage for supplies. The Federal Naval had very weak underwater detection equipment, so there was utterly no way their presence could be discovered. They had finally departed. 1,000 Hola-class bored deep into the sea and gradually moved away from Dolor continent. It was already not Tang Wulin's first time leaving Dolor continent, but it felt completely different this time. The last time he headed to Star Luo Empire was for the purpose of a diplomatic mission. Moreover, he was but a student at the time. There was not much of responsibility on him, but he was there mostly for participation. Even though he spent a total of a few years on Star Luo continent after his encounter at Dragon Valley, yet he knew that he had still completely belonged to Dolor continent, at least in the depth of his heart at the time. On the other hand, his doing now could even be described as giving supplies to the enemy, judging from the Dolor Federation's point of view. In a sense, he was already standing on the opposing side of the Federation. Even though he had no qualms about this, how could he feel just the same as his previous occurrence? The only thing Tang Wulin could do now was to use all the time he could to cultivate. Yi Xinglan and Yuan and Yehui continued to devote all their efforts to helping everyone to make 3-word battle armor, hoping that they could make a few more before they arrived at the Do Spirit Empire. Tang Wulin's encounter with the Darkness Bell was a warning to himself, as he learned that their current abilities were still inadequate when up against true powerhouses. He wondered how long it would be before he could come back after this departure. Tang Wulin thought about Gu Yuana absent-mindedly once again. Would he come to Sky Sea City again? She would not find him in Sky Sea City anyway. He was in deep sea at present. He wondered if she could sense his presence through the silver dragon scale pendant. Tang Wulin caressed the silver dragon scale hanging around his neck subconsciously as he felt a warmth in his heart. Wait for my return. I'm going to come back with father and mother. By then, we should be able to solve the mystery, right? You should be able to tell me what actually happened between you and Enea as well. We should have a complete family when I take father and mother home. Be my wife and our family shall stay together. What could be happier than that? At this point, Tang Wulin's heart was filled with motivation. He gradually entered a meditative state. Wulin, Wulin, Wulin. Tang Wulin had lost count of the times he heard a soft call in the depths of his mind. It awakened him from his immersive meditation. He opened his eyes, but he realized that he had not come out from his familiar meditative state. To his astonishment, Tang Wulin discovered that he had entered the golden world once again. For some reason, during old Tang's previous awakening, he sank into a deep sleep very soon after sensing the existence of the boundless universe crystal in him. Since then, he would frequently sense a kind of call coming from a faraway place during his meditation. The call did not sound as clear, and he had never been to this golden world that belonged to old Tang anymore either. He was greatly surprised when he was brought to this place once again. Could it be that old Tang had awakened again? However, old Tang did not appear this time. There was only the voice whose calls echoed from all directions continuously. The voice seemed to belong to old Tang, but it sounded slightly different from previously. Old Tang, is that you? Where are you? Tang Wulin looked all around as he called out old Tang's name. Old Tang did not emerge as he had done before, but at this point, Tang Wulin could see something familiar. That boundless universe crystal of his had enlarged by many times and appeared in front of him. The golden radiance had dimmed slightly, but the boundless universe crystal turned even clearer and brighter. It was just floating there. It seemed to be of the same height as Tang Wulin. A stream of golden radiance shot out from the apex of the crystal toward the sky in an endless stream. The surface of the boundless universe crystal was emitting faint halos. What's this? Tang Wulin stretched out his hand absent-mindedly and caressed the boundless universe crystal. In an instant, he felt as if the sky and earth were spinning around. Everything in his surroundings suddenly turned Bizzare and Gaudy. It felt as if another gigantic passage had appeared with an incomparably powerful suction force coming from inside it. It pulled at his body toward the distance. The feeling of dizziness made Tang Wulin grow nauseous. He had never felt this feeling in the past before due to his physical capabilities. He wished to struggle free from this feeling, but he did not have an ounce of strength left in him. Wulin, Wulin, my child, the voice sounded clearer and clearer now. Shockingly, Tang Wulin discovered that there was more than just one voice now. Other than the original voice that sounded like old Tang, there seemed to be another female voice. Who are you? Tang Wulin wished to scream out, but he could not make a sound at all. In that bizarre and garish world, he thought that he could vaguely as if see a misty landy with wispy, white clouds. In that land, there were mountains and rivers similarly filled with tangible life source. It was a life force purer than the life seed. He then saw another enormous palace where a man and a woman stood in front of the palace. The man had a head full of long blue hair that draped over his back. The voices calling out came from them, but Tang Wulin could not see their faces clearly. He could just barely see the man's eyes. It was a pair of incomparably clear eyes that felt like they could cast light upon everything. In the depth of his eyes, Tang Wulin saw himself. A burst of terrible, stabbing pain radiated from his brain all of a sudden. Everything in the surroundings shattered and vanished in succession soon after. Ah! He screamed out in agony. Tang Wulin discovered that he had already returned to the golden world and could see his surroundings clearly once again. This time, old Tang was right by his side. Tang Wulin panted loudly and heavily. The intense feeling of weakness made him feel like he was about to have a spiritual breakdown soon. Old Tang raised his hand and pressed it onto his head. Faint, golden rings circulated around his head. He felt cool, refreshing waves and was much more at ease soon after. What happened? Old Tang, what was that? What happened? Tang Wulin panted as he asked Old Tang standing by his side. Old Tang looked at him with a smile. That's a call from the distance. I've finally completed the connection with them. Even though I don't understand why am I doing so and I'm even less sure of where I'm connecting to, I can tell you that this is going to be extremely crucial for you. Tang Wulin was thoroughly confused. I don't understand. What are you talking about? Old Tang replied, in simpler terms, a need to connect with the distance appeared in my mind spontaneously after sensing that you'd fused with the Boundless Universe Shield. I used the Boundless Universe Shield as a medium to connect to the distance. I only knew that this was my mission, that it was important, and it remains as the most important task in the depths of my memories. Then, I began attempting to connect and finally completed the basic process. Afterward, I brought you here because I couldn't complete the entire connection alone. Only your aura can do this. Tang Wulin stared at him in bewilderment. I still don't understand. Old Tang shrugged. Me neither. You can only wait until you've truly completed the connection and you're able to communicate with them, and then perhaps you may be able to understand. There's no need for you to understand too much for now. Tang Wulin spoke with a bitter smile. You're making me more and more confused with your words. Is this very important to me? Old Tang nodded in all apparent seriousness. You could say that it's incomparably vital to you. As for why, I still don't know at present. However, you must connect to that place in the distance. On the other hand, you need to become powerful enough in order to do so because the connection should be across planets. Moreover, it's exceedingly remote. Even though the other side should be enduring most of the consumption, you'll still need to be strong enough in order to connect to their signal. Basically, your physical ability and spiritual power will still need to be elevated by a large extent to do so. Tang Wulin spoke in bafflement, so how far would I need to elevate my abilities in order to complete your so-called connection? It was Old Tang's turn to smile bitterly this time. I still don't know about that yet. You can only complete the basic connection which you just witnessed earlier with your current cultivation base. It allows you and the other side to sense each other. From now on, every elevation to your abilities will make this connection clearer. I recommend that you give it another try when you've broken through to the 12th layer of the Golden Dragon King's seal. Or you can do so when you've made qualitative leaps such as when your spiritual domain has taken form. By then, perhaps you'll find out why do you need such a connection and maybe even learn about who the other side is as well. Feeling slightly helpless, Tang Wulin shrugged. All right then. Since you said that it's very important, I shall give it another try later. However, the feeling earlier was truly not that comfortable. He may have said these words, but his eyes revealed that he was deep in thought. For whatever reason, he felt an unspeakable uneasiness as if something was stuck in his throat upon hearing the call earlier. It was beyond description, but it was definitely there. What sort of feeling was that? In the faraway place, who were the man and woman? Old Tang said, all right, there's no need to ponder too much on that right now. You've successfully cultivated your 1,000 accusing fingers. I should now teach you the second spear technique. Huh? Tang Wulin's eyes glowed. Second technique? What's that? It could be said that it was the 1,000 accusing fingers that brought him to cross the threshold of learning spear technique. It was precisely due to the spear technique that he was able to skillfully use his golden dragon spear, and later created the two skills of King's Path and Final Stake. The more he cultivated, the more he could feel the power of 1,000 accusing fingers, but there was still a second technique. How powerful would the second spear technique be? Tang Wulin's heart was filled with anticipation. Radiance flashed in Old Tang's hand as he conjured a spear similar to the golden dragon spear. He said in a deep voice, 1,000 accusing fingers is only the foundation of spear technique. It allows you to skillfully utilize it. On the other hand, the true spear technique is the perfect combination of your essence, energy, spirit, and spear. The so-called spear's consciousness, spear soul, and spear spirit are a precise portrayal of a perfect combination. You'll not only need to master these three skills but also combine them perfectly in order to truly achieve the peak of spear technique. You must fuse your emotions, thoughts and everything else into the spear technique. The spear technique that is produced as such is akin to a domain. That is the true spear. You were capable of creating the king's path and final stake on your own through 1,000 accusing fingers. Your two original spear techniques are the result of combining your own thoughts. You've found your spear's preliminary path, and that's very good. This is also acting as a foundation to me being able to continue teaching you the spear techniques. On the other hand, the next spear technique that I'm about to teach you will take a very long time to comprehend. You can only complete it by cultivating painstakingly. Perhaps, you can only inherit it for real by comprehending it. Take notice of your feelings while you're doing so. Old Tang slowly raised the golden dragon spear in his hand while speaking, and his entire aura was soon undergoing a transformation. Old Tang seemed to have turned illusionary under Tang Wulin's gaze. The golden dragon spear in his hand seemed to have vanished at the moment. An eerie and illusionary feeling radiated soon after. The bizarre Gaudy that Tang Wulin felt earlier when he touched the boundless universe crystal appeared once again. Everything in the surroundings surged and transformed into a faint light mist that filled the space. It felt as if every minute particle in that light mist had its own story and its own space-time. The airiness fluctuated. Tang Wulin felt as if he had already experienced a millennium in that split second. There was no pain, nor did he feel the presence of the spear, but only the passing of time. What was that? Then, he discovered that his body had begun to change. His originally young and strong body began to turn even stronger, followed by gradual aging with wrinkled skin and white hair. In the end, he turned into a skeleton. He had drowned in the Yangtze River of endless times as he vanished without a trace. From the beginning to the end, he had not felt any pain during the process. But this made him feel even more terrified. He utterly had no idea of what just happened nor of what he was enduring during the entire process. The dust gathered once again as light shadows reappeared. He stood over there in perfectly good condition. Old Tang remained standing over there before himself as if nothing had happened. What was that? Tang Wulin looked at Old Tang as his heart was filled with shock. Even though he had not managed to see how Old Tang's spear technique earlier was utilized, the feeling was genuinely very real. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye and his body had completely disintegrated. Tell me about what you felt. Old Tang had not elaborated, but he questioned Tang Wulin on the contrary. Tang Wulin said without hesitation, sure. He was feeling a little worried that he would forget the feeling earlier. He eagerly wished that he could immediately describe and request for Old Tang's guidance. Time, the spear technique earlier should be the spear of time. The spear technique is filled with the profoundness of different times. Even though I don't know how you utilize it, but it felt like I experienced 1,000 years during that very moment. My human body can't withstand 1,000 years, and that's why my body disintegrated immediately. My body was completely destroyed by time. The profoundness of this spear technique is time control, right? Correct, but also incorrect, said Old Tang. His expression was calm and appeared to not have changed much on the surface. Correct but also incorrect? Tang Wulin frowned. He suddenly recalled everything that Old Tang had mentioned before he launched the spear technique. An idea flashed through his mind as words escaped his mouth. That wasn't a real change in time, but the changes are in a person's mind, right? In other words, the time itself hasn't changed much, but I thought that I've already lived past 1,000 years due to the influence over my state of mind. Thus, my mind has passed through 1,000 years. The spiritual attack immediately rendered me defenseless until I had disintegrated. On the other hand, I've not lived through 1,000 years in reality. Am I correct? Old Tang looked at Tang Wulin in slight astonishment as he nodded satisfactorily. You're extraordinary as expected. You've mentioned a key point there. You're right, this is precisely one of the profundities in this spear technique, but there's far more than just this. On the other hand, the experience you felt earlier is not the complete version of the spear technique. In order to display the power I launched earlier, you won't be able to do so unless you've truly attained godhood. The foundation of the spear technique is demigodhood. You can only truly express its power when your spiritual cultivation base has achieved thought concretization. Demigod Spear Technique? Tang Wulin was feeling confused. Since it was a demigod spear technique, why would old Tang chose to teach it to him at this time? Old Tang said, "Strange, isn't it? Why do I teach you a spear technique of this level now? This is because the spear technique, albeit requires demigod rank and above to express its power, you'll only need to comprehend some of the profoundness in this. If you can comprehend the profoundness of time even for 10 or 20% of it, then it's sufficient for you to use it for life. At the same time, your comprehension in time profoundness will be helpful when you're attempting break through the Golden Dragon King's seals in the future. Only the floating white clouds in the sky shall remain for 1,000 years. So the spear technique is known as Millennium Cloud." Tang Wulin was shocked. For some unknown reason, he felt that the name sounded a little familiar. It was as if he was supposed to be skilled in this spear technique. Old Tang continued. "Next, I shall start explaining about the changes of time first. If a god were to utilize the Millennium Cloud, then it can truly be utilized to make 1,000 years pass by in a flash and not just in one's mind. Hence, you must first learn about the meaning of time. As compared to the process of learning thousand accusing fingers where he was instructed to use it over and over again, old Tang dwelled more on explaining the theories. Millennium Cloud did not follow a fixed form. Just as old Tang had mentioned, it was the perfect combination of essence, energy, and spirit. It was a god-rank spear technique that was launched using one spiritual power as the source. It was not as easy to comprehend the spear technique as one thought it to be. Tang Wulin naturally did not possess the natural endowments to swiftly master this technique. However, his concept of time and even space became clearer and clearer from old Tang's explanations. It allowed him to gradually sense the other level's ability. Time passed minute by minute under such circumstances. Tang Wulin lost count of time when he suddenly felt like his brain had swelled up a little. Old Tang had just ended his explanation. Tang Wulin awakened from meditation. He opened his eyes and they still had a look of confusion. It was truly not an easy task to receive so much knowledge in a short period of time and completely absorb everything. He would need more time to ponder and comprehend this knowledge. Tang Wulin cracked into a faint smile. Millennium Cloud had allowed him to bear witness to a brand new level. The other day when Tang Wulin watched those 3 limit Duluos materialize and disappear at will, it should be their control over space that made it possible. If he was capable of successfully cultivating a portion of Millennium Cloud, then he would be able to better master the profoundness of time at the very least. Only the floating white clouds in the sky remained for 1,000 years. Millennium Cloud was the profoundness of time. Even though the submarine was large, it was impossible for it to be equipped with an adequately sized cultivation arena like on land, especially when it was working in the deep sea. Thus, the group of people including Shrek 7 monsters and Blood Dragon unit had almost spent all their time cultivating in their rooms. The voyage was a very long one, for the submarine would need about 2 months of time to arrive at Do Spirit Empire. As compared to Star Luo Empire, the Do Spirit Empire was located slightly further away. They would arrive at Do Spirit first, then followed by Star Luo before finally returning. This was the entire route of this envoy. Tang Wulin spent every day cultivating as routine, but he was also spending time to comprehend Millennium Cloud's time profoundness continuously. However, the ability to control time and space had always been the most complicated ability in the world. Even though he had old Tang's guidance and it was also relatively easier to comprehend, it would definitely take more than just a day or two. Fortunately, old Tang would appear in his meditation every day during this period of time. Old Tang guided him in cultivating but only focused on the Millennium Cloud Spear technique. Even though Tang Wulin was still far from being able to use this technique, the process of absorbing and digesting the knowledge to verify his learning was truly quite benefiting for himself. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.